and welcome to the Mission City podcast. We have been in a series on relationships. We've talked through singleness, dating, marriage, and today we wanted to discuss parenting. What does the relationship with your kids look like? How does your relationship with your spouse play into your parenting? And how does parenting shift over the years? There's a lot covered today, so I'm going to hand it over to Dave and Chuck.
Chuck and Benny, good morning, fellas.
Good morning.
Is it a good morning?
It is a great morning. It's great to be alive. I'm drinking my coffee and my new Harley Davidson tumbler. Somebody got me for my birthday a few weeks ago.
Happy birthday, Dave.
Happy belated birthday.
Well, thank you.
What are you 60?
You know, almost.
Sirius says happy birthday.
Seriously, Sirius said happy birthday. That was awesome. What was
the reason?
But I tell you what, though, the Texas Rangers got me the greatest birthday present of all time.
See,
Benny,
that's what I was going to bring up. Is that
check it out.
Siri also says happy birthday on mine.
Siri's talking. Do we want to start this over?
No, we could just.
I guess so.
Just roll it. Okay.
Let's just roll it.
Well, the thing is I was going to say, is it a good morning? When this airs, the Diamondbacks and the Rangers will probably be already, maybe even done.
It'll be done because these are 2 weeks in the hole now.
Right.
Not one. 2 weeks in the hole means it's 2 weeks.
It'll still be
syndication.
It'll still be 2 weeks of my mourning of the Astros loss.
There's a new sheriff in town. His name is El Bombay.
El Bombay, is that the guy that what's his name? The
Garcia
that hit like 17 home runs in the postseason.
He got hot, didn't he?
You know, they said that Jordan was the most feared hitter, and that whole series, every time that dude walked up, I was like, this is not gonna be good. And then he struck out like 4 times in a row in Game 7. I'm thinking, or Game 6.
And then he hit the grand slam.
And then he hits this slam that
the salami, the grand salami.
Yeah.
Well, it was a great series, though. Was it? Was it? You know, I mean, it was up and down. It was just a crazy series.
No, it was. How do you lose every game at home? That's what I don't know.
Well, the Astros struggled at home all season. The Rangers didn't. I don't know what their deal was. I hope that changes in the World Series because they got home field for World Series.
Do they?
Mm-hmm. Because they have the advantage over. They actually would have even been home against Philadelphia because they beat Philadelphia. They swept Philadelphia at the beginning of the year.
I'm sure there's some Philadelphia fans watching. But I'm not displeased that it's not Philadelphia.
Because of Bryce Harper?
I mean, I'm impressed by his ability, but as a player, I mean, he's not my favorite. Actually, the only player I like on that whole team is Trey Turner. I think he's a good player. I think he plays with a.
I think he's a believer too.
I think he plays with a certain way that.
Isn't he a believer?
Admire the way.
I think he's a believer.
I don't know, but he plays a certain way that you go. I admire the way that he plays. He doesn't showboat. Yeah. He runs hard. He plays hard. He's got great skill. So that's the only guy. Diamondbacks, however, I love the way they play. They run bases. I know this is not a baseball podcast.
It is today.
Suddenly sports.
Poor Benny. He's like, is that the one where they hold a stick?
Do they hold a stick
this one's
in front of a diamond or something?
The diamond.
They play on a diamond.
Oh, wow.
And they go home. Their goal is to get home.
I do that too.
That's fun.
You have diamonds, or you go home?
I have a theory why. I have a theory why they don't win at home.
Because they like to be hated.
Because when they're at home, they have to deal. Those players oftentimes have to deal. They become. I know this sounds bad. It's going to sound bad, but they come home and they're dealing. They're fathers, and they're husbands, and so it's not like they get to come home and just take it easy. They probably have parental opportunity, parental duties, and taking care of kids.
Yeah, they have other responsibility.
I'm not, I think that's a good thing.
Of course, when you're making $100 million, you can hire people to do whatever you need them to do, right?
Not if you're a good father.
Right.
Might affect your baseball play, which clearly it did for the Astros and the Rangers.
Well, you can come up with whatever excuse you want. It's just the better team won.
Yes, I know, man. They won.
The Lord's team won.
The Lord's team.
Goodness gracious.
I'm teasing. But it was a great series, and it's just a great week. And I've been really excited about this series of podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
We've been talking about relationships. We talked about singleness and dating. And then the podcast that comes out this next week will be we'll have 2 married couples that you guys will get to see. That's an exciting thing, you know.
Yeah,
I thought that was a fun
what
thing.
Joe and Kay had to say, and of course Morgan and Lane, newly married, just the wisdom that they already have in how they pursued the dating life, and then they're pursuing in marriage has been. It kind of gives you hope for a younger married generation, doesn't it?
Well, that's one of the things, you know, here at our central location, the Central Church, we have several, you know, been married within the last year or so. Three of our staff people, our kids minister, Blake and Molly, you know, they celebrated a year not too long ago. Daniel, Kyler and his wife Sarah celebrated, and then Morgan and Lane just got married. And so it gives me a lot of hope. And one of the things in my morning quiet time I'm praying for is that their marriage has become a measuring stick for others, you know, and for the student ministry team and the kids, you know, they get to see that godly example, because we get a lot of students that come from broken places. And so it's great that we have such a solid student ministry, a solid kids ministry at all of our locations. All of our churches that get to see that example, because it's important, because that's what we're kind of talking about today is parenting and relationships and things.
Everything's fun and games until 9 months after conception, and then the doctor hands you a baby.
What now?
And there's no instructions attached. You know, it's like you open, you know.
Where's the manual?
Yeah, where's the manual on this? Like I remember the first time they put Haley in my hands when she was a newborn, and I'm thinking, oh, I don't want to mess this up. You know, you feel the weight of that as a new parent.
Well, especially at that stage, because they can't do anything for themselves.
Yeah, they're totally dependent on you. And then they grow up and they become Tasmanian devils.
Here's how I was blessed. I was blessed by my mother-in-law, who's a very godly woman, led my wife to Christ. She watches our podcast from Canada all the time. But she stayed. Hey, Becky. She stayed with
Canada,
us.
eh?
She
did I say that right?
She's a Louisiana girl, but she came and stayed. She wasn't in Canada yet, but she came and stayed with us for like a week, 10 days, 2 weeks. I don't remember.
Yeah.
And so that feeling coming home from the hospital of what now was a little bit better, because, you know, we had, you know, grandma there. And so that was a blessing for us.
Absorbed by some experience.
Yeah, you know, it was just very helpful to also have that time where my wife, you know, needed the sleep and the rest from going through everything. And so
they're not like puppies. You don't pick them up by the
no,
knife
I tried
through skin and carry.
I got screamed at.
Yeah.
I got screamed at a lot, but you know, you and I are kind of at two different places. You both your kids are now married and have jobs and
They
have graduated
survived
from
us.
college.
That's amazing.
And
Yes.
great kids, both serving the Lord, and you know, your daughter working for Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and your son's a coach, and taking that wisdom that you've given him, not just about coaching, but about you discipled him well,
Yes.
and he's doing that, and I know you're proud. And then
Yes,
I've got
am.
a senior in high school. My daughter's a senior, and then my son is a sophomore, and he just, you know, started working and things like that. And so we're at different places, but wow, it's a ride, isn't it?
It is a
And
ride.
how fast does it go? I mean,
Blink twice and they're like in school. Then you blink again and they're graduating, and they're off doing their things, and you know, and you want to support them in their things, and you want to guide them in their things. And it's interesting to watch the progression of how you parent from when they're newborns all the way up till, well, both of mine are out of the house. They're grown. They're married. One has a baby of her own.
That's right. You're a grandpa.
Lincoln. I'm a grandfather, which I know you can't tell, but
I thought you were a great grandpa. What are you talking about?
thanks. But
Great grandpas can't pull that shirt off, though.
yeah, no, absolutely.
I think there's bees
Lots
in
of
here flying
compliments
around,
on
you know.
that. Lots of compliments on that today. But anyway, just the progression on how you parent. You know, we're at a stage where we've gone from I do everything for them to now I'm a mentor, I'm a friend.
Sounding board?
I'm a sounding board. Matter of fact, Haley called me yesterday, and she's struggling with something in her ministry at work, and it's like, hey, I need to bounce something off of you. She's ultimately responsible for it. She's got to handle it. Dad can't come in and sworn in and fix it.
Right.
But she's like, hey, I need some advice, because you've been in this world and you know how to do this. And so it's become very mentor. Derek and I talk daily about teaching and coaching because he just wants to soak that up, so much.
It's great because you obviously built such a good relationship with him that he can call you. Mm-hmm. Not just because you were also a teacher and a coach, just because you mentored him and discipled him.
Yeah, he trusts that where I'm guiding him is in a good place. And Cheryl and I prayed over our kids so much when they were little.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean they had perfect lives. I mean, they did not. And doesn't mean we always did it well. But seeing the fruits of how God protected, grew them, shaped them through Cheryl and I has been. This has been a fun part of our lives.
I bet it's you said something really, really important, and it made me think back. And again, I don't want to leave this impression that I've done this all the time perfectly or anything, because I've messed up a lot of times, and only by the grace of God have we survived or anything. But the foundation that we set is we started praying before they were ever born, praying for their salvation, praying for their future spouses, praying for, that we would be the right kind of parents. But when we came home from the hospital, one of the cool things that God allowed me to do was I don't sleep a whole lot. And so I'm up in the middle of the night a lot of times. And so I did the middle of the night feeding. And, that was sort of my time of bonding and praying over both of my kids when they didn't even know, they just knew somebody was sticking something in their mouth and feeding them, but that gave me that time. And I think that's where the intimacy was actually created within the first few days, just having that time where I got to pray with them and pray for them and over them. And that started for us, sort of that foundation. And Ashley got to sleep, through the night or whatever. And then she got up with them in the morning and we took turns or whatnot. And then there was times, obviously, we held our child together and prayed, but we started very, very early on, just praying that they would continue to develop mentally, physically, emotionally, and one day spiritually. We prayed that they would come to know Jesus at the earliest age possible. And we just had a baby dedication at both of our locations a couple weeks ago. And it was really cool to see parents and
extended family.
And we had a couple people, because we get so many military families or people that are transplants, they come down here and they don't have any family here, but they're in a life group. And so a couple of ours had life groups there in lieu of family, because it was sort of we kind of did it quick whenever we announced it or whatever, but it was just a sweet time. And that's what I would encourage those of you that are watching and you're thinking about having children. Start praying now, even before, you know that you're going to have. Just start praying, Lord, when that time comes, just help me to be a godly parent and raise them up, and begin that, because it's sort of like what we talked about with dating. Even before you started dating somebody, start praying for that individual, and it's already a habit by the time God brings them around.
Well, I don't know if you brought up dating, and I think it's important for us as parents to step into that world. I don't know if Caleb's dating yet. If you announce that, you're going to totally embarrass him. So.
No. We're pretty strict about our rules. Are he can go out in a group, or if there's a young lady that he's interested, he can bring her over for dinner, or we can go out to eat or something like that. When they went to homecoming last year, we drove them, and when they went into the restaurant to eat, we were at the Rim, and we were outside at the. I mean, it wasn't like I was looking in the window or anything. I wasn't doing that, but we feel like but at their age and everything.
Binoculars.
Yeah, the binoculars across the. I hired a private investigator,
little trackers and whatnot.
I had a fake mustache. Or for me, it was a fake skin. It wasn't mustache; it was just skin. Anyway, we're pretty strict when it comes to that. our older daughter Hannah, even though she's a senior, she hasn't begun that. She has autism and stuff, and she's high functioning and everything, but she hasn't got to that. But Caleb knows that, hey, you go out in a group. We want to meet the parents. I went over and talked to the parents and let them know, hey, I'm going to be there. We've raised our son at church. We didn't just raise him up in church. We've raised him up in Christ, and so we've been extremely cautious, because my dad was. I can't even tell you what my dad's advice for me was when I was so inappropriate before I started dating, because my dad wasn't a believer until after I went into the ministry, and so I didn't really have.
We'd have to go to like those colored lines if I told you my dad's advice. It'd be like Chuck, and then you come back and be somebody else sitting here and be like,
what happened?
And it'd be like, yeah, Chuck is no longer with the church at Mississippi. My dad's advice was,
mine was, it was,
bad.
It was worldly. It was caring, but not from a biblical perspective. My dad loved me, don't get me wrong, but it's just the quality of love was different because he wasn't in Christ. And so it wasn't about honoring God. It wasn't about certainly not honoring her or anything like that. But that's one of the things that very early on we started I took my daughter out on dates, and I opened the car door for her, and I opened the other door, and I explained to her how she should be treated when she starts dating a young man. We had those conversations very early on. Same thing with my son. We taught, this is what you do. You open the door, and also too, it's a reflection of how he sees me treat his mother. I want to make sure I respect her, and I remember a couple times he might have gotten a little saucy, and I was like, hey, you don't ever talk to my wife. You might be my boy, but that's my wife. You don't ever, kind of a deal. And I want him to have that same love and respect for the woman that God has for him. And so
we made some mistakes in that arena with dating. I mean, it didn't. I'm thankful that none of it ever came up and bit us. It very well could have. But we made some mistakes in not covering that. A lot of those bases, and I'm just thankful that God protected. One, Haley suffered from a father as a coach syndrome, which a lot of the guys would not date her because they didn't want to get in trouble because I was their coach, probably, And one of them, I admired one of them because he asked her out, and I was like, do you know who that? They like, whose dad that is? And they're like, yeah, that's Coach Foster's daughter. And they go, he'll kill you. He'll kill you. And he was great. And their dates were not, they were pretty much at our house or, very short periods somewhere. And of course there was the whole conversation, like, if something happens to her,
you're gonna.
I'm not afraid to go back to jail. But
that's what I say too. I'm like, I'm a pastor, right? Who do you think they're going to believe?
Yeah, no kidding.
And I wasn't always a pastor, and so there's a little bit of from the they can creep in.
Yeah, Derek was a little more. He just wanted to be more with the dudes and hang out with guys and hang out with his teammates, and he was less interested in dating. He had a girlfriend for a little while, and he had another one that was when he was a little older in high school. But really, the only person he's really truly loved is the woman that he's married to now.
Oh, that's great.
And I'm so thankful that process was, that happened in college, and he's like, out of my house. I'm like, dude, you just have to, all the things we've talked about, and we talk daily about those.
Train up a child in the way
you should treat a woman. You should never put yourself in a rough situation, in a bad situation. All those things, coaching him up, literally, how to handle those things. And I'm thankful that he, for the most part, I'm sure he did exactly what we've asked him to do. But we'd be naive to think
you obviously
that our
had
kids
that trust factor too. I mean, he doesn't just ask for your advice because of the coaching thing. There's that trust thing, and so that's one of the things that I've been trying to instill in the kids is like, you can trust your dad. I just had a conversation with my son the other day. We were coming back from Bernie from a hitting lesson that he had with one of your buddies there in Bernie, and we were coming back and we were talking about some different things and his future. And I said, son, I've never lied to you. I've tried to build up a trust, and in my prayer and the way that the Lord is leading me, you can trust that because I'm relying on God. And it's the same thing whenever you lead your wife. She knows you're leading her because of your relationship with Christ. Y'all just talked to, Joe and Kay Hutchinson and then the Schefflers, they were all talking about, the wives were talking about, I trust my husband because he's connected to the Lord. Mm-hmm. Our kids can see the same thing. They're like, well, I know my dad's prayerful. I know my dad's in the Word because they see it. Mm-hmm. Every decision we make is based upon prayer and,
right.
Big decisions and stuff. Like even moving from Houston, where my son loved living and wife had a job. We loved our church. We knew it was the Holy Spirit saying it was time for you to move on to Mission City, and they knew it was not just a knee-jerk reaction. It's the same thing with their future. When they see and hear your prayers with them, they learn that trust, and it becomes a little bit easier as they're getting older. And so I would encourage, parents, and even if you're like, well, my kids now are teenagers, I've already blown it. No, you haven't. You still have that opportunity to pray with them and allow God to redeem that time and really start building them up in the Lord and so forth. And so
there was a country music artist that sang it a long time ago, sang a song that I really like. It's called "I Come From a Long Line of Love." And it talks about a husband always loving his wife, and he goes, and he said, I learned that because I watched my father love my mom. And I think one of the most important things we can do for our kids is love their mom well.
Yeah.
And when they see that, that's one of the biggest parts of parenting, is when we model how we're supposed to treat our wives, how we love their mom, we value their mom. Then when it's easy to correct them when they're if they're cross with their mother, like you alluded to another, like don't talk to your mom that way.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Like they go, yeah, I never see dad talk to mom that way. Dad respects and loves and cares and protects mom, and gives mom kisses, gives mom hugs, opens doors for. Waits on her, does things in the home that support her. And when our kids see those things when we're parenting that way, I'm watching Derek do those things.
That's awesome.
Which is really cool because we went early October up to East Texas, and we're going back again, and watching him in their home do the things that they do is pretty cool.
That's great.
It's just like I would want them to do it, just like I would want to do for Cheryl.
It was funny. One of my kids, I don't remember which one, asked me who my best friend was. Like, so who's your best friend? Because I'm doing the motorcycle club thing, and there's guys that I'm really close to. Pastor Matt and I are really close, and over the years, and known each other for a long time in the ministry and stuff. And so they were like, "Hey, he's your best friend? Such and such your best friend?" I said, "Man, your mom's my best friend." And they're like, "What?" And I was like, "Your mom is the best friend that I have." I was like,
100%.
When I've gone through difficult times in ministry, or just when my father passed away, different things. My wife has always been there. She's been my biggest supporter, prays with me and everything. And I was even talking with that last night to a pastor who just is going through a difficult time. I was telling him last night he was having a rough time at the church that he was at. And I said, I went through a very similar thing. And I said, I tell you what was the most incredible thing in that for me was seeing the loyalty of my wife. And he kind of looked at me, and I go, I always knew she was, but when the rubber hit the road and I was really devastated and hurt, man, was she there. And I said, I remember I would come home and I would pull in the driveway, and I'm kind of sitting, and I want to make sure I'm in the right mindset, heart set before I go into the house because I'm struggling.
Yeah.
And I guess one time I was praying longer than I normally do. And she came out to check on me. She came out. She said, "I saw you pull in. I knew you were probably praying, but Ma, you've been out here for a while. Is everything okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just want to make sure I left, that brokenness here.
Left it on the road. Yeah.
I didn't want to come in and the kids, because one of the things I didn't want my kids to see is I got hurt by a church and then them reject church. You know what I mean? I wanted them to see that it was people that made a mistake and that I wanted to be able to forgive them. You know, we're doing this series in Joseph and how amazing Joseph's forgiveness for his brothers and his family is.
Yeah.
And I wanted to display that and demonstrate it, and I couldn't do it in the flesh. And so, but watching my wife come out to the car and demonstrate that loyalty to me was an incredible, it really softened that blow. And so I think that's one of the things I wanted my kids to see too, is like your best friend should be the person that God has for you. If it's the right person, if it's God's person for you, that's what you'll see.
Yeah, and you see it the other way around. You talked about it. Cheryl serves me, and I serve her, and they just see it back and forth both ways. Man, it's been awesome. I love talking about my kids.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll never not love talking about my kids. I know you're the same way.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for a heavenly Father who parents me well.
Yeah. All of this, doing anything well, is because of Him.
100%.
I mean, I think about that all the time. If you're listening to this and you're not a believer, it's so much easier whenever you have Jesus. I mean, it's just so much easier. Put your faith and trust in Him and allow Him to lead you through that parenting. But thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Getting to watch how your kids are becoming is encouraging to me. And so I appreciate your heart for.
Well, I appreciate that. Love your family. Yeah. It's exciting. Benny, you're kind of quiet today.
Well, I don't have much to contribute in this area.
You better be soaking it in, because we're going to smack you around if you don't do what we're saying.
No, honestly, it really is a great. I love getting to hear these kind of discussions because, as you mentioned, in like preparing your heart for it, I love just like listening for what are the things I can begin doing now to prepare myself for being a father in the future.
Well, I've always learned from mistakes other people make, and then we get to expound on that wisdom, and that's been good. Our kids definitely learn. Hopefully they learn from our mistakes, but we want to prevent those as much as we can. Man, it's been great being with you guys today.
God bless. Appreciate y'all watching.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Mission City Podcast. We hope that you took something from this session and this series on relationships. We've got a special interview session for you next week, so click here to subscribe so you don't miss the next session, and you can click here to catch up with the podcast this season. See you guys next time.